Hey everyone, I'm Mark.
I'm
this
Logan.
is Logan. Today we're talking about a D&D story, Trapping a Lich. One thing we wanted to talk about, we've talked about this a few times on the channel, is when you create a big bad evil guy, it helps to kind of have a backstory, right Logan?
We were talking earlier about Thanos. Classic bad guy. Everybody knows him from Infinity War and Endgame. And one of the reasons he's such a good bad guy is not the fact that he's super powerful. It's not his cool abilities that he gets with his Infinity Stones or even his innumerable hordes of alien evil. It's knowing his purpose. It's his backstory. It's where he comes from. It's his drive to accomplish his goals.
Right.
It's that depth of character that makes him a truly formidable opponent.
Absolutely. You understand, you don't really agree with his methods, but you understand why he goes to great lengths.
You get it.
In his mind, he's actually doing a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And often that's a good point, is we often the bad guy may think they're the good guy. You know, and it's kind of two sides of a coin. So they may not think they're straight up evil. So they may have a purpose. But today we thought we'd do something. You may have noticed our logo. We have this little guy right here, a skull with some pencils jammed in his skull. Which when we designed this, we originally thought that made a lot of sense with a dungeon skull class pencils. That's pretty iconic. But we thought we'd create a little bit of a backstory and kind of give you an idea of what this might look like. So this is the story of a mage named Bocerak. Now, Bosarak, like most mages, they start to get power and they have a lust for power a lot of times. These high-level mages, they get to a point and they just have to have more power. And so, of course, at some point, he decides that my goal is to become a god.
Yeah, I mean, whose goal isn't that?
Right, exactly, right.
Come on.
And that lust for power, obviously you're not going to want to stop until you get all the power, right? And so, like a lot of mages, though, he does take on a student. And in his mind, it isn't because he wants to pass on his knowledge. It's that I'm so powerful. If I bring in this student, I can measure just how powerful I am against this newbie, And so he brings in this guy, but his student is a quick learner. His name is Goran, and Goran he starts to become a pretty good student and learns quickly everything that Bocerak teaches. And as you can imagine, Bocerak he thinks it's because he's a great teacher. Obviously my student's learning all this because I'm a great teacher. But honestly, he just learns very quickly. And so you have master and you have a student, and together they're helping. Together working for Bocerak to get that goal of becoming a god.
So one of Bocerak's main pulls to becoming a god is the fact that you're all powerful, you're immortal, you can't be challenged, which is kind of every wizard's attitude. But to make that a reality, that's the top of the top.
Yes.
But to become a god, you don't just, walk up to the character generator, push a button, oh, I'm a god now.
Yeah.
You gotta, no. In D&D, there's a multitude of different ways you can take. And Bocerak decides, hey, you know what's really fun? Lichdom.
Lichdom rocks.
Liches are sweet.
Yes.
Who doesn't love a good lich? Right. Some of the most famous liches in history. Vecna, Acerark, some really bad, powerful guy.
Right.
And the only problem with lichdom, it's a little
not pleasant.
Not pleasant, kind of immoral, kind of frowned upon. Some would say even evil. And so to become a lich, there's some parts of the ritual, parts of the process, including splitting your soul up into things called phylacteries.
Right.
Sacrificing innocence to accomplish this purpose. Some of the parts of the ritual including using angel skin paper to write down dark incantations.
Yeah.
It could require these bone quills made from demon bones and stuff.
Right.
It's not like you go to the store and pick up a how-to kit,
So the path he chooses to go lich, and then the next step in that is become a demilich, and then god. So the idea of lich buys you time. You live forever. But there's a restraint there, is that you have to be in your body. Demilich, to become a demilich, you can leave your body and travel to other planes.
I want to break in here real fast and explain how a demilich is created. In order to become a demilich, a lich has to gather 8 gems at a tremendous cost and replace parts of his body with each of these 8 gems. These 8 gems will house the lich's soul. So what happens down the road is if someone wants to destroy a demilich, they have to destroy all 8 of these gems. If they do not, then the demilich will return in 1d10 days as a fully strengthened, ready to go demilich.
This is kind of the path that he chooses because he figures that if I can travel to other planes, I can learn how to become a god. So all those things. So he does carry out the ritual, and like you described, it's straight up evil. I mean, there's no two ways of couching it. But he does that, and his student is there watching. He sees the whole process involving clerics and those clerics being killed in the process and all those things. But he sees all of this. But he doesn't necessarily see everything he thinks he sees.
Mark, you're a teacher.
Yes.
You teach.
I do.
You have students.
I do.
You were at one time a student.
I was.
And I assume you had good teachers that helped you to become a teacher.
Yes.
As a student, if you had a teacher that sacrificed all the other students and became an undead, all-powerful teacher, how would you feel about that?
Well, I think on one hand, I kind of want that power. I kind of like that idea.
Right, yeah.
I don't know if I agree with the way he went about it, which is kind of the way that Goran sees it. Goran, the student, he's like, you know what? I'd like to become a god. Goran is a little different than Bocerak. Goran's he's kind of a handsome guy.
Yeah.
He likes the ladies, and the ladies seem to like him. And so the idea of becoming a lich and that whole rotting thing.
Yeah, probably seeing his master with the sunken eyes and the skull face.
Yeah. So he's like, I don't want to go that path. So he talks to some friends of his who are followers of Saloon, and he learns that followers of Saloon, Saloon the god, often rewards them by translating them when they're back in their presence. They're
sounds
translated.
awesome.
Yeah, it's right. You just, in the blink of an eye, you're in her presence.
And then you're kind of like, if there's gods involved, you're probably more angelic instead of rotting and decaying.
Yeah, so that definitely sounds more pleasant to him. Now, he's not really a follower of Saloon, but he also learns that on occasion, she has granted translation to people who have done something like quell some massive evil presence.
Like a lich?
Yes. So therefore, he figures, hey, you know what? If I kill my master and I do this, I stop this evil thing from happening, perhaps she will translate me and I'll be in her presence. I'll learn how to be a god. So that's the path that he chooses. So here you have master and student, both on the same path to godhood, but taking different paths. Goran prepares to kill Bosarak. Right. How do we kill Lich?
You kind of can't kill what's already dead, can you?
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, the problem with liches is that their souls are stored away in these things called phylacteries.
Yes.
Kind of like with the Harry Potter series where Voldemort has the Horcrux, where Voldemort can't himself die because his soul's all broken up and you have to destroy these things that contain the part of his essence. Kind of like Sauron with the One Ring, same kind of concept.
Davy Jones and his heart is in that,
Yeah, so, we've seen this through tropes. Even like, what is it, like Dracula, you can only kill him if you stab him in his coffin.
Right.
This is kind of a common thing with immortal, undead bad guys.
Yeah, it's pretty common.
Liches are no different. And Bocerak falls in that same place and he's like, oh, where can I put something that can house my soul that's not me? I want to be undead. I want to live forever.
Yes.
Where can I put my soul? I can't just put it in a box.
Right.
Can't just put it in a cursed item or something because he's been around the block.
Yeah, he's seen what happened with Vecna and Acerark, some of these past liches. Yeah. Maybe things didn't go as well, and he's like, that was silly. I got a better idea.
What's his idea, Mark?
His idea is I'm going to put inside my skull, I'll put it inside my skull, inside a pocket dimension. Pocket dimensions, which we know very well from Bag of Holding and things. He puts the pocket dimension in his head, but inside the pocket dimension, he puts the strips of paper, the vellum that basically houses his soul on soul runes. He stores those inside his skull. No one's going to think to look inside his skull, right? He does create a box that it looks like his phylactery, and the student, as far as the student knows, that is his phylactery. Goran tries to figure out how he's going to kill his master, and he knows all I got to do is destroy the phylactery, and he knows how that works. Mm-hmm. But then one day he just kind of wants to peek inside that phylactery because he didn't really saw the papers, the runes they wrote on. He was kind of curious. Yeah. He happens to do a quick little spell and realizes the strips of paper are not in that. That box is empty. I know, mind blown. Yeah. So one thing leads to another, and he thinks back conversations he's had with his master and the books he was looking at, and he finally figures out what Bosarak does. He figures out that he's put this in a pocket dimension in his head. So it's then the next thing is go, how's he going to kill him? How's he going to do that? Well, then in his research, he figures out that something from that plane of existence can pierce into that plane. So therefore he thinks, the bone quills were taken from succubus. The pocket dimension, he figures out, is in the abyss, and that's where the succubus bones came from. So if I grab those quill pins and jam them into his skull, I should be able to kill him. And so, one day, while his master is preoccupied, he does exactly that. Grabs him and jams him in there. His master falls to the ground, and he's killed his master. He cuts off the head, dries it out, makes a nice little ornament thing out of it, kind of like, ha, I beat you. Of course. Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you? Yeah. You want to have a nice trophy of what you've done. Mm-hmm. But he never notices that there is one of the teeth, there's a jewel inside one of the teeth. Where the molar was in Bosarak's skull, there is now a gem. And what he doesn't know is that Bocerak has started the path to demilich. He did not kill him, but they only trapped him inside his skull.
So, Mark.
Yes.
Bosarak had this crazy story, these twisted ideals, this lust for power, and he gets so close.
So close.
So close. And then his student kills him.
Yes.
But he's not really dead. He's just trapped in this pocket dimension in his skull.
Yes.
So what happens next?
Well,
what happens to Bosarak? He's not really dead.
He's living inside. He's trapped inside his skull. He can see and hear everything, but he's trapped in his own skull. And all you see, and in fact, the only way you know he's still alive in there is these tiny little pinpricks of light. If you really look closely, you can see them in his eye sockets. There's still some life in there, trapped in that gem that's in his tooth. Oh. Now, here's the question that remains: what happens when you take this with the pens out?
Wait, why would anyone ever take those pens out? Don't they know that's a lich's skull keeping his evil, twisted soul trapped within that pocket plane?
So the way I would use it if I were DM, I would put I would put gems on those pens to make them attractive to somebody. Right. So this becomes something that a DM could use in their game. So you've got this skull. It's got these two cool bone quills in there. And no one's probably not going to just pull these bone quills out unless they're into bones.
Right.
But by having a gem on the end of them, well, people like gems. And so when they pull them out, like demiliches, and 1d10 days later, Bosarak will regenerate into a full lich. And that's how I would use it in a game. So it'd be something that you could use and, oh my gosh, you've just unleashed something inadvertently.
What have you done?
Yeah, exactly.
Pandora's box kind of situation.
Yeah. So that's the idea behind Bocerak. He's our villain. So we kind of gave you this backstory to show that you don't really agree with what he's trying to do, but you understand it. The guy wants to become a god, so you kind of understand where he's been. Mm-hmm. You also understand what you've unleashed. You've unleashed a lich, and he's still, if he's left to his own devices and he's back at it again, of course he's going to continue to pursue the demilich route. He's going to be a danger. He's probably, one thing about him in his past is that he has covered up his tracks. Yeah. Anyone that knows of his secret, besides Goron, his student, he's had killed. Anyone that's known that he's become a lich, everybody involved in that. So if you unleash him, his tendency is going to be to kill whoever unleashed him, to silence them too, to hide his tracks. Yeah. So there's that. So your party gets to be chased by a lich.
Mm-hmm. And that leaves so many awesome opportunities as a DM to get creative with that. What happened to Goron? Is he still around? Was his path to godhood successful, or did he end up falling into the same trap that his master fell into, becoming even worse than Bosarak?
Right.
Maybe Bosarak is a necessary evil to help defeat Goron later on. Maybe Bosarak is unleashed, all heck breaks loose, and then Goron's not there. But all you do find are some notes where you hear about this story, and you now have the responsibility, after unleashing him, to go and find this skull, find the gem, find Bosarak, find a way to stop him, to either access that demi-plane inside, or that pocket dimension inside of his head, and stop him once and for all. That could open up so many cool avenues for so many different possible situations in so many different games.
Speaking of unlocking dimensions, if you would like to unlock some dimensions into some fun and like to have more good ideas like this, make sure you subscribe down below. And also down below in the comments, tell us what are some ideas that you would have for using a lich in your story, or what happens when they actually unleash that skull. What's going to happen? What's going to happen to Goron? Any ideas you have, go ahead and put those in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And I think that's all we have time for today.
That's it.
Logan, and with that, class dismissed.